Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Brilliantly Resilient Live. I'm Kristen Smedley here with my buddy Mary Fran Bontempo, and we have the most brilliant guest. We are still on this. We're going to help guide you to make this your most brilliant year yet. After the year we all just had, it's time. It's time to shake it off, uncover your brilliance, and share it with the world. And we are so excited that our lineup of guests has just proven to be absolutely brilliant, how this is all unfolding. And today is one of the most brilliant and fun. And I keep calling him my Lego man friend, and you'll see why that is in a few minutes. But we have Lego man extraordinaire, new author with a book doing very well that we're going to dive into. One of the biggest hits on the Succeed Without Sight Summit that happened back in the fall that people are still talking about. This is my good buddy, Morten Bonde. What's up, Morten?
Well, everything is great here in Denmark, and yeah, lockdown and yeah, not exactly normal times, but we're all in the same boat on that, I guess. But otherwise, I'm pretty okay. And hope you too are.
And for those of you listening on the podcast, as Morten is saying all that, he has this ginormous smile on his face. He really is okay. As we're all, every time we check in, I feel like every time we check in, Morten, we're going to be at the point where we can say we're back out in the world and everything's normal, and it just never happens. So
no, it's almost like a target being put in front of you, and then someone remove it just before reaching the target. So it is. I stopped anticipating when this will be over. So why not just enjoy, the craziness while it's there.
And that's exactly why we love having you on today, because of your perspective on things and shifting perceptions and changing the expectation before you even consider the outcome. That was perfect.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I jumped on your website. Obviously, you and Kristen have a history, but I'm a little bit newer to the game here with getting to know you. And your whole story is, we talked a little bit before we started recording. We talk about the reset, the rise, and the reveal of your brilliance. And your life story pretty much fits into that. Like it or not, Morten, like it or not.
So predictable.
Right? I mean, geez, honestly, we get these guests who, they just have the same thing going on. But seriously, you have, I mean, your life story, like with most of us who have these challenges and these crises, you kind of think you're on a track, and then all of a sudden, bam, you get hit with that sucker punch and that train wreck. So I really want everybody to hear what that sucker punch was, and then, how you started on this journey of the reset, rise, and reveal of your brilliance.
Yeah, I am diagnosed with the eye disorder called retinitis pigmentosa, which is an inherited eye disease that slowly turns off the cells in the retina. So you start out normally, at least I did, with a normal vision, and then gradually over the years you kind of notice that something is off, and then you are typically diagnosed with RP, and then that in the future you will lose your sight and become blind. That's a given. And I hit that first mark in 2002 when I noticed that something was going on with my vision. I couldn't really understand what was going on, and I was diagnosed back then with retinitis pigmentosa. And at that point, it wasn't really a problem. But I was told that I had to, anticipate blindness in the future. But being 29 years old and starting with life and all that, I had a strategy saying, let's forget about it. Let's just ignore it and let's pretend it's not there. And that worked for some years, and then it started not working. I think maybe around 2010 it started not working as well. But I was and still am working for the Lego Group as a senior art director, where everything is almost visual. So I was approving TV commercials and visuals, and I did that with only 4 degrees of vision, which is, let's do a little example. I know the podcast viewers can't see this, but it's more or less like a small keyhole you look out of, and when you have to see something, you just have to scan the surroundings and then put everything together in your head.
Oh my
And
God.
that can be kind of you can get used to it, but you know it's gonna wear you down at one point. And it started during in 10, and maybe 12, around 12. So for 4 years I was just struggling, and in 16 I crashed and burned. I burned out. I suffered from stress and depression, and I didn't even know why until I went to the ophthalmologist, and he said, Morten, do you know that you are legally blind? And I said, whoa, am I legally blind? And he said, yeah, you're kind of you are just what you would categorize prior to being totally blind, because you only have 4 degrees of vision. And I was really suffering and struggling at that point. And I looked at the doctor and I said, could this somehow be related to me having, suffering from stress and depression? And he said, yeah, that might be the case. What do you do for a living? And I said, I'm a visual art director working for LEGO. And he just looked at me, are you insane? so so that was the natural end
Little
of
stress there, right? Just a little stress added to that. Oh my God.
yeah. So that was the turning point. That's when I started, okay, you have to take this serious. You can't just continue ignoring it. So I started looking at my life, and I started looking at what person I was, and what person could I become. So that was the tipping point when he told me that I was legally blind. And then it started from there. And I was preparing for early retirement, and part-time job version, finding out how to work at LEGO maybe only half the time. And the reason why I did that was I was convinced that I could not do my job anymore. I was convinced that I couldn't change my situation. I couldn't change my stress. I couldn't, there's so many things I couldn't, and that was a given and for certain. And in 17, I had a moment where I was sitting at the municipality office, and we were discussing this early retirement thing. And all of a sudden, I just had this moment where everything just crashed. I just felt that, in an instant of a second, I literally died, or not literally, but I felt that it was the end of my life. There was nothing left for me. I could just easily go out and stand in front of a car, whatever. There's nothing left for me. But then there's something else happened that just felt an enormous freedom. I was liberated from having to be that person that I thought I had to be. So I heard this inner voice saying that, what do you want in life, Morten? You're not making decisions for yourself. You let people decide for you. And that was when I started, okay, I have to upgrade myself. I have to create a version of myself that can smile and be happy despite of blindness, and a life in darkness in the future. So that was very quickly download. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? It's so interesting to me to hear you talk about that, because what you were living under was the weight of everybody else's opinion of what blindness is. And I went through the same struggle, and I know so many people that did also. The entire society says, "Oh, you now can't do anything." And when you're programmed that way, and everything in our society is set up that way, and then you're coming at it with, well, wait a minute, I still want to do this. I still want to do this. And you're just hitting all these walls, that's because of the perception of blindness. And yet you were able to have that freeing moment, and start to switch gears. Where do you think that comes from, that you suddenly were able to say, well, wait a minute?
I think it was maybe it was piling up. I think there was just a very memorable moment when I was just feeling that that this was the end. I started after this experience. I started asking myself questions. I had these questions going on. I must say that my whole life up till 2016, I had this dialogue going on in my mind, you know, and it was mostly critical. It was this inner voice that was telling me things that I couldn't do. And when I say voice, it's not like, you know, I'm not schizophrenic or anything, but thoughts
Mhm.
that was not, they were not doing anything good for me. They were always kind of criticizing me when I when I couldn't do what others could do at my job. I would have a voice saying, "Oh, you stupid, whatever," and you know, you can't do anything, and you're not good enough, and all that. And I think when I tell this to people, they say, "Oh, yeah, okay." It's, you know, everyone
Yeah.
knows what
Universal,
I'm
yeah.
talking about. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
everybody has.
said that, okay, what if I can create a new inner voice? What if I had a voice in my head that most of the time said, "Awesome, way to go, you can do it." And how can I reprogram that inner voice to be my best friend instead of be my worst enemy? And I, I, I I had a moment. I remember seeing a YouTube video clip of a guy called Nick Vujicic. I mentioned him also in my book. He was born without arms and legs
Mm.
in Australia. He lives in America now. And I saw this. He's a motivational speaker, and he was standing on this stage with thousands of people, and he said that my doctors told me that I was never going to walk. And he taught himself to walk
Mhm.
without legs, and he taught himself to swim without arms, and he did so many things. And when I looked at him, I said, you know, this is, it's just what you decide in your mind. It's what you tell yourself in the mind that is going to be your limit. So if you say that you are limited by this, then that's what's going to happen. And I
No, I
just
was listening to a talk, and I think it was I think that person you mentioned was mentioned in it also, but I think it was a TED talk where anyway, they were talking about the power of the mind, to your point, that they took swimmers, Olympic swimmers, and never had them in the water for this experiment that they did. And they just were watching the muscle mechanics of how they wanted them to do this one stroke, right? And they never practiced it in the water physically. It was all a mental thing about how to do it. They got in the water and were able to cut time off of their race doing that stroke that they had never practiced,
yeah,
all because of the mental power.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
Kristen and I say often, when you mentally let go of what you think things should be, you make room for what they could be. So that, you know, it works in either a positive or a negative way. And in your case, you let go of this negative idea of what a blind person should be and opened up the possibilities of what you could be. And
yeah.
you know, one of the things that I saw on your website, you have on there storyteller for the Lego group, which I totally love that you know phrasing, because anybody can tell a story.
Yeah.
And you know, I think what you did is kind of maybe change the way you were telling your stories. Is that right?
That's exactly right. It's simply what happened. I decided to tell another story about my situation. But it, you know, that sounds so easy, right? You just, yeah,
Mhm.
okay, you go tell yourself another story. But because people will say, yeah, but you know, you're just imagining things, right? You are deluding yourself, you're lying to yourself. But what I realized was that we are basically, and this sounds maybe a little hard and cold, but in reality, we are a bunch of programs, and we have been programmed since we were children, and we have programmed ourselves to be the person that we are. And so what I realized was that, you know, in order to change, just have to start acting the way that you want to become, and you just start and decide to do it one day. And then you say, okay, for what I did was I said, for 30 days I will notice every time my inner dialogue becomes negative on something that is just a label that I put on it. If I pause my judgments, I could probably come up with another label on the situation. You know, I have that choice. So for 30 days, I would do that every time I said, "Oh, shitty boss. Uh, why is it late?" And "Oh, it's raining." I was like, "Oh, uh, uh, wonderful raincoat. Oh, my wife bought that to me last week. No, I'm so grateful for her buying this raincoat. You know, you shift your perspective on things, And
Yeah.
I did that for 30 days. And after doing that, I almost, you know, I realized that so many times it's myself who makes a judgment on something. It's not out there, it's in my head. So that was the first month of, oh my God, I can change my reality if I changed my behavior or my thoughts in my head. So it is, yeah,
That's
fake it until you
interesting.
make it. It's not just a phrase.
Yeah, because so many times people say, well, just change your thought or just imagine yourself doing it that way. And it's not that easy. But when I like that you broke it into, okay, I'm going to like challenge myself for 30 days because I love the challenges too. And honestly, Morten, I was thinking of you this morning because I knew that we had this interview coming up. And I was sitting, I have a morning accountability group that I'm in, and which helps me be productive and stay on task. And I was looking at my week because they said, what is your goal for the week? Your one thing. And I'm like, one thing. I have 57 million things this week. And I started to get that whole like, why did I pack this week this way? Why? And then I said to them, I said, oh my gosh. And I was thinking of you with the, let me swap this around. I get to do all of this follow up because of all the connections I made last week. And I thought it was going to take me way longer to have all of this happen. I just totally swapped it. And when I tell you, I was able to, I think I breathed out about 50 pounds off my shoulders.
Yeah.
And I was able to come into my day way different than this, oh my gosh, why did I do that to myself? It was perfect.
So let's talk about the practicalities of that though. In your, in your role at Lego, how were you able to kind of make that shift? Because let's call it what it is. There was a physical limitation on you that did impede in some ways what you were doing. So how were you able to make an adjustment that allowed you to practically continue in that organization?
Well, I think first the Lego Group is probably one of the world's best places to work. So that I have a very understanding and helpful management people who said to me, you have all the time that you need. We are going to help you with this. So that was
Yeah.
that was a
Yeah.
really, really big help, right? And then I had that support also for my family, and so I would say, those two things are really, really important. And then I maybe unconsciously shifted my focus actually a couple of years prior to this collapse, where I made it clear to everyone. I wasn't keeping it as a secret as such, but I maybe didn't really say to people that, I'm gonna be, buying and by now it's only like this. I didn't do that because I was obviously aware of that some would probably challenge my position there, saying, oh, do you really think you should be here? So that was a fear. That's why I didn't talk so much about it, but I started shifting my focus to be more of a storyteller, a writer. I was writing the scripts that ended up becoming TV commercials, and then I worked together with my colleagues, and I would be honest about, if could you look at this, colors is not my thing, so if you can do this, I will write this. And then I was really often in front when we had to present the story, because that's, you the minifigure, and you act and you scream and you do all that. So a lot of people didn't really see that I had any problems, but I was really struggling because I was not being totally honest about it, and I was getting stressed because I thought I should do more and I should be better and I should all. So they were actually okay with me figuring out, how can I contribute to the Lego Group. And now I actually do much of internal pep talks to other departments, and I work on projects on accessibility and diversity and inclusion. So I'm half at the Lego agency, and then I do all sorts of things that try to inspire my colleagues, and so that's a dream situation that probably I feel very, very fortunate and grateful and lucky for being able to just figure out how to be my best version at the Lego Group.
Well, it's interesting that as some of your jobs and focus were had to go away because of the blindness issue, all of your brilliance came to the surface. Your storytelling, your speaking, you're connecting with people and getting the inclusion stuff out there. Like it's uncanny that happened. And you were looking, it's like, what we say, you're looking so long at the door that's closed, you're missing all the windows and other doors that are open of where you're actually supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had those transferable skills that Kristen and I talk about all the time, like those parts of your life that maybe weren't in the foreground before with your previous position, but were still there because it was part and parcel of everything that you were doing. And this shift in what happened with you allowed those other parts to kind of rise.
Yeah.
And you were able to sort of embrace that part of it. I think that's something that maybe is applicable to people across the board, and that you probably are able to tell people when you do your motivational speaking,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I think what was really, there are a lot of factors, but I think one of the most important thing was actually cultivating mindfulness into my everyday life. No, because I was always, ahead of, I was always somewhere in the future or somewhere in the past. I was really never present in the moment. And mindfulness, implementing that into my life became my tool for connecting to what is right now. And then I started noticing what was going on in my body. Now my heart starts beating. Why does it do that? Oh, you started thinking about that problem you have. Okay, what is it a problem? No, it's not actually a problem. You can solve it very easily by doing this, or you cannot solve it, so you should accept it. Okay, what will happen if I accept it? Then you create a new path based on this moment that we're in right now. Don't judge it. Don't get angry with it. Don't make it into an enemy. It is what it is. We go from there. And that was the mindfulness that taught me to sort of breathe into the moment. Notice that it's just my thoughts creating a monster in my head. It's not really that important. It's just, if it was Lego, it's just a piece of plastic we're trying to get into. It's not gonna, and if it doesn't work this time, it will work next time. So taking seriousness out of everything and not making problems into an enemy. They're just a challenge that we have right now that we somehow have to deal with. And so I think meditation and mindfulness was really, really, really key in this.
You just described the whole reset, rise, and reveal your brilliance with the what can I really control? What's the action step I'm going to take in my new direction? And I'm not going to be married to the outcome. I'm going to move with it and see how it goes. You just described that beautifully with mindfulness being in there. And here's what I love about you, Morten. You take something that people either blow off or they don't want to talk about, like mindfulness. So many people say, I don't want to talk about that. That's not real. It's not practical. Yes, it is. When you say it the way you just said it, that you're practicing staying in the moment and then going through the brilliantly resilient process. Get back in the moment and go through the process. And as usual, the show is supposed to help everybody else. And you just changed my life again, because that's the piece that I couldn't quite figure out as I'm trying to put this whole process together. It's coming back into the moment. I've been doing it little by little without realizing that it's what mindfulness is. And now I really am going to dive more into mindfulness to get better at this, because I'm just simply realizing, like with my kids, I'm realizing that I'm having conversations with them and I'm thinking of all the other things that we have to do and where we have to be. And I don't remember half of the stuff that we just talked about, like simple things like that are driving me crazy. And I think the other part of me is thinking they're only here for a few more years. They're all going to be off in college. And I'm wasting that by not being in the moment. So we'll have to follow up with some of your strategies, unless you have some right now that you can talk about, but we'll have to dive deep into mindfulness again.
Yeah, you gave it, there was 4 challenges or something. Is that part of, okay, so that's part of what you were talking about with that.
Yeah. The first part of the book is, my story with becoming blind, and it starts all the way back to childhood, because I show that, that there are patterns that were following me from childhood all the way to adulthood, about feeling not good enough, and having that inner dialogue. And when I was facing blindness, I could see that most of my problems were not the blindness. It was how I was handling it. It was me, the way that I was making this into a big problem. And most people say, yeah, it's kind of a problem. Yes, but it's Viktor Frankl, he wrote a book called The Man's Search for Meaning, and in there he said, if we're in a situation that we can't if we can't solve the situation or change it, then we are challenged to change ourselves. And that was sort of, oh yeah, I see that. I can't change blindness, but I can decide to change the story that I tell myself about blindness.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get the second part of the book is then, okay, all the knowledge that I have, I was really, I listened to around 80, 100 books in 7-8 months. And what I was reading about was basically religion, philosophy, psychology, biology, physics, all things that I kind of decided one back in time that that's foolish, or that's idiotic. I don't believe that. I don't believe in this, and I don't. And I started opening up and saying, okay, let's look at all these things that I just said. No, I don't want to do that. And mindfulness and meditation were part of that. And then the third part of the book, I say, okay, all this knowledge is great, but if you're not gonna use that in your life, it's gonna just be, it's gonna be entertainment to the next party, or you can brag about knowing and all that. But if you don't use it, it will never be implemented. So that, and I knew that if I have to change unconscious patterns, I have to stick with them. I have to, I have to new habits for at least, I said 4 months. I said 4 months, will keep me in the mindset. And the fourth challenge was become a person who can see possibilities in life rather than limitations. And I pushed the send button to my boss, and I said, oh no.
Oh, that commitment thing again. Oh no.
Exactly. I have to do it now. So I was having fun exploring all this, and I wrote the book and I created the talk, and it all ended up being this finale when I had to stand on the stage and give this talk to all my colleagues. So and the challenges was the first one was to challenge negativity, the inner dialogue. And the second challenge was about challenging fear and worry. How can I deal with that? And the third challenge was challenging feeling limited by my disability. And the fourth challenge was to share this with the whole world. And that's been my task for the last couple of years, where I just talk to guys like you, and then I keep pushing the book, because I think I want it to be the things that I learned. I just want to tell that. I want to share that. So that's it gives me so much when I can when I can see in someone's eyes, and they have this light bulb going on, and I just, yes, that gives me so much when I can do that.
Wow.
I mean, you, as Kristen said a few minutes ago, you just literally epitomized the entire, brilliantly resilient process. And this idea of, challenging yourself and setting that action plan in place, because when we break it down into those doable pieces, it's not, oh, I'm going to suddenly become mindful, because that's where people stop. They go like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. It's just never going to happen. But when you break it down into that, that 30-day challenge, I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this. It's about taking those small steps. We tend to think that big crises and challenges need big solutions, but in fact, it's exactly what you said. It's breaking it down and taking those small steps consistently that moves people forward, and then allowed you to show your brilliance. So tell everybody where we can find you and where they can get this book, because people need to get this into their hands.
Yeah, it's probably going to be a little difficult to find me because I'm in Denmark, so you have to travel quite
Oh,
far.
we have ways, Morten. We have ways.
Yeah. But,
don't underestimate us.
Okay, I'll be surprised when you knock on the door, but I'll let you in, and I'm gonna invite. Oh, probably not now with COVID and all that.
Yeah,
so,
no, we'll hold on
yeah.
for a while.
Yeah. But the book, I actually narrated the book also as an audio book, so it's on Audible, and it's on Amazon, and of course in a paperback version and a Kindle book, and then also as an audio book on Amazon. And yeah, it's it's 100% self-published, so I'm doing everything myself. I had a little bit of a Kristen, you know that I had a little bit of a crash there just after Christmas when we talked, but I think I'm back again, and I'm full of energy. And
Morten had the exhausted self-published author. Why am I, is this really going anywhere? And it was actually a group of the speakers from the summit. We are now trying to stay in touch every month to see who's doing what. And I got to tell you, that whole group, talk about having a tribe, and it's a brand new tribe. Everybody on that call was giving incredible, even if it was just one quick, Morten, hang in there. Morten, let's talk offline. Here, I've been through that too. It's really the power of a tribe. And there was a lot of people that after you were so vulnerable and said that you were just exhausted from pushing this book out. All of us that have done stuff like that, and the entrepreneurs knew exactly where you were at. And then people were reaching out to me saying, oh my gosh, because you present as, oh, I went through all this and now I'm teaching everybody and I've got it together, which is how a lot of us seem to want the world to see us, because we're the go-to people. And when you actually have that moment that you have to crash and reset again, and you tell people that, then everybody was like, oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, it's not just me. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing whole life challenge to keep, it's like training in the gym. If I flex my arm with this weight, I'm gonna get a huge arm. If I stop doing it, it's gonna be all
it's gonna be what this is. This is not good. It's not good.
Yeah, so
I'm thrilled they couldn't see that.
I decided I just have to, vulnerability, honesty is the recipe here. So I'm not pretending to be, the guy figuring everything out, or has figured everything out. I am, gonna be challenged by vision loss my whole life, but I just decided to be transparent about it, and sharing that, and showing that you can decide to fall into the pit, or you can decide, the pit is there. I can start walking around it instead of falling into it every time. And I think that's a life ongoing exercise that we all have to be on. And I definitely have, because I have a mind that wants to say to me that, oh, it's so, oh my God, I have that mind. So I have to use my mindfulness to see, yeah, but I make a new decision now. I don't want to be sad now. What can I do? I know I have to do something with my body. I have to take a walk. I have to start smiling. I have to start jumping, and and you can do that. And that's also the message here, that you can decide a lot of things, but you can decide to be miserable, and you can decide to be happy. That it's simply it sounds strange, but I think I really believe that.
It's all in your mind, really. And I'm sitting here thinking about, I'm looking at the poster behind you for your book. And I want everybody to realize this, like, let's land on this for the end of this as we wrap this up. The book is called Sentenced to Blindness, Now What? You can go at it two different ways. You can go at it with sentenced to blindness, now what? Or as Morten is saying, okay, sentenced to blindness, now what?
Now
like,
what?
What is your forward?
Yeah.
Did you intend it that way?
Yes, and the Danish version is a little clearer on it. So I'm happy that you see it, actually, because it is a now what, like, oh, yeah. Or now what. So you can say it in different ways, and you can actually put a question mark after, or an exclamation mark. So in Danish it's more like, there is this it's no, I can't. It's difficult to explain, but the words mean the same, but you can say the same, but it means totally different things.
Yeah.
And so so what maybe would be the direct translation. So it's like so what, like this
Yeah.
is nothing,
No
I'm
big
gonna
deal.
beat this, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I love it. I
So
love that that's the title with the subline. And I want people to take that in and realize that that's where the whole book is written from, the vulnerability and authenticity and moving forward after something big like that. So this has been, here's the problem. I could talk with Morten all day long. We could have a marathon podcast.
Yeah, I'm right there. We'd have a 17-hour podcast. I don't think people would, no offense, I don't think anybody would listen to the whole thing. I mean, they'd have to definitely, that would be another challenge. I will listen to Morten for an hour today. I will listen to Morten for an hour.
Yeah, there you go. Actually, you just said challenge, and here's what I'm thinking, because Morten, you talked about challenges. We have the Uncover Your Brilliance challenge coming up in a couple of months that we're going to talk about and open that up again, because we just recently did one. I'm thinking at some point this year, we should do some kind of a mindfulness with Brilliantly Resilient, the formula, with a challenge together with us and you, Morten, and really have people dive into how to do that in the reset part. I think that could be really fun.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, cool. All right, well, good. Now I just put you on the hook for that. We'll have another episode and see how you're doing. But everybody go and get that book. And after you read it, let us know what you think and leave a review on Amazon, because that's how the books get pushed out to more and more people that need to hear the story. So, and go look up, Morten, what's your website? MortenBonde.com?
It's mortenbonde.dk, and then it will take you automatically to an English version of the site. So
that's right. The fun stuff we're learning as we're international here at Brilliantly Resilient. All right. Thanks for joining us, buddy. And thanks everybody for listening to another episode of Brilliantly Resilient Live. You can find all of the resources that we have out there for you to reset, rise, and reveal your own brilliance for your most brilliant year yet at brilliantlyresilient.net. We'll see you next time.